Managing a small team or business comes with a unique set of challenges. With limited resources and manpower, it's easy for things to feel chaotic and out of your control. How can you, as a leader, accomplish your goals while keeping your team engaged, effective, and accountable? This podcast will give you practical strategies you can implement now to lead your team or business to reach its fullest potential. Welcome to the Organizing Chaos podcast with your host, Danny Coleman.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of Organizing Chaos, where we talk about small, practical strategies for small teams and small businesses. And today, for the second time, although this is the only time you know about, is Mr. Caleb Mathis of the Chik-Fil-A here in Columbia, Tennessee, on here today with me. Last time we did this, we had an amazing episode. It was fantastic. We talked about all kinds of great things. We're super passionate. And I got to the computer, and alas, it was not recording. It's the way of things. Yeah, the truly lost episode that only we'll know about. So we're here to kind of talk about it again. And Caleb, thanks again for making the time to be back on the show.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm really excited to be here, even for the second time. And I'm just looking forward to chatting.
Sweet, man. Awesome. So tell us a little bit about how you became Caleb Mathis, owner of Chik-Fil-A.
Sure, yeah. So really, my story starts all the way in Alabama. I am a Tennessee native now, but I am originally from Alabama, and I started really with Chik-Fil-A. It was my first job.
Mm-hmm.
I had an older sister that was working there at the time, and we kind of grew up in a lower income family.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea of extracurricular activities, anything outside the basics, nice clothes, things that I wanted to choose, all those kind of things started coming into play, and I realized, hey, if I want these things, I'm going to have to pay for them. And my sister had a job, and I realized she was starting to get some of these things, and I said, hey, that sounds like a great idea.
I like this making money thing. Tell me more about it.
Right. And so I, at the ripe age of 14, went and interviewed, and I got the job, and I was really only 14 for 2 weeks. But I like to kind of claim that I started when I was 14.
Yeah.
And so I started working at Chik-Fil-A, and I only worked a little bit as a part-time gig. And I just kind of stuck through it through high school. And as I worked through it, I just really began to love what I did.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the relationships I built there with the customers, but also with the other teammates and my owner-operator that I worked for. His name was Randy, and I just built a really good rapport with everyone. And it was kind of unique because I had so many friends that would start to get part-time jobs as we got older and older.
Right.
And most of them just kind of worked somewhere. They grinded it out, and then they left. They didn't really know the owner. They didn't really interact with the owner. They still had friends just like I did, but what was really unique to me was the fact that my owner-operator, I felt like I had a relationship with him, and a kind of a mentor friendship kind of deal. And it was really kind of unique because I felt like he actually cared about me.
Yeah.
And cared about what happened in my life. And there's a lot of unique kind of situations where he really displayed that outside of just giving me a paycheck. I mean, I remember we couldn't afford to get pictures done for my sisters, and we wanted to surprise my mom.
Like for school, like school pictures?
Well, not school, but for we wanted to get her a gift.
Oh, okay,
and
gotcha,
we wanted to do some pictures, and we just couldn't afford to get a photographer out there to do that.
Yeah.
And my mom didn't really have any pictures of us because they couldn't afford it either.
Wow, okay.
And he kind of did that on the side, and so him and his family, they kind of helped us. They took us out to one of our local parks, and we made some really nice pictures for my mom, and he did it all for free.
Wow.
Just because he cared about us, and then he took us to dinner that night, and we had a lot of fun. I think about that. I think about when I was going to prom, and all I had was my 1988 Dodge Dakota truck that I bought for $200.
Nice.
And it would blow smoke every time you'd crank it up. It was quite the thing to see. He helped me learn how to drive a stick shift and let me drive his vehicle.
Wow.
To my prom that night. And, just things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Just above and beyond. I mean, I think he may have been a little crazy to let me borrow his car when I was 17.
Have you lent your car to any employees yet?
No, I don't think I have. and hopefully none of them are listening to hear that part. No, but really, I probably would for the right ones, and I think I had built that trust with him.
Yeah.
Over those years, because I've been working for him for 2 or 3 years at this point. But it's just the care that comes with that, and so. Anyway, that was kind of where all that started. He eventually moved on and moved to Nashville. He's still in the Nashville area, so I get to interact with him on a professional level now, and it's really kind of interesting to do that. But I had another owner-operator named Randy as well. His name was Randy Ernest, and he kind of came in a little later in my senior year, and kind of tail into junior year and beginning of senior year, really.
Okay.
That summer, that in-between summer. And when he came in, he still offered the relationship piece, but he had much more of a leadership development focus. And it just really, really inspired me. And he would have coaching moments with me. He would kind of talk to me about excellence and just doing more than I thought.
Okay.
And so that just kind of really built that confidence in me.
What so like leadership development, like as far as it was, I mean, like was it just coaching moments, kind of like what else did like,
he was
that
the
look
first
like?
person that really inspired me to start reading books.
Oh, okay.
And he said, hey, if you really want to lead, his little motto, he said, readers are leaders.
Yeah, yeah.
And he said, this might be kind of cheesy or trite, whatever. He said, but it's true.
It is true.
And he gave me a list of 3 books, and one of those was 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership.
Okay.
By John Maxwell, which I think is a phenomenal book. And I've really encouraged many of my own people to read it in their journey as well. But it just started it sparked something in me. And I remember I hated reading, really, before. I guess I didn't have the attention span for it. And my sisters would just read for hours on end, and then here I am, just cannot force myself to read, and I couldn't put that book down.
Yeah.
And it started a hunger there. And so he would spend time with me. He would encourage the reading, and we would just talk about things. And then he gave me opportunity in the business. And so when he got a better opportunity in Coleman, Alabama, so I was working inside of a mall, by the way, just to make that clear. We were in a mall, Chik-Fil-A, and so he got an opportunity for a standalone Chik-Fil-A in Coleman. And so when he left, he offered me a position to come with him. And so that's when I moved. That was my big move. I had already.
So you lived in a city named Coleman?
I sure did.
was it spelled Coleman?
No, it's actually Cull.
Oh, okay, so it's Coleman.
But it's you're thinking it's named after my last name here. It was a unique place to live. It's a small town, Alabama.
Gotcha.
Like really. Makes Columbia look like a metropolis.
Wow. Okay.
In a sense, well, it's grown up a lot now, but
right, yeah.
But it really is a smaller town. And so I kind of packed up and said, "Hey, it's been good so far. Let's see what else is next." Because really, at that point, I had decided I wanted to be an owner operator, and he basically said, "Hey, why don't you come work for me? Come be my nighttime manager." And I eventually became his general manager. And he said, basically, hey, invest in my business, invest in my people, I'll invest in you, and do everything I can to help you get to be an owner-operator. I'll mentor you into that. And that's what I chose to do. I believed him and followed him, and he made good on that.
So that's awesome, man. I mean, and it's like I have a similar story. I won't tell all of it, but just basically the whole reading thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the last place where I was an employee, that's what they did. They were like, hey, around here we read, and it's like,
yeah.
Like what exactly, like, and they're like, yeah, just pick a book that you feel kind of relates to what you do for the business that can help you like do that better. Yeah. And so the first book I had was Checklist Manifesto by, it's like Atul Gawande, I believe. It's an Indian name. I always mess it up, but it's over there, or no, it's right there. Oh, there it is. Yeah,
okay.
Atul Gawande.
There it is.
I'm saying it right, I believe. But yeah, so and it went from there. I mean, you can see the rest of them there. 4-hour work week, and it's true. Like I think that once you kind of begin to have a passion for personal development, it really does begin to change you. And so we've talked a little bit about last time about kind of how that culture of personal development, caring about your employees that you sort of saw. Is what you do with what you're in your current business now. So can you talk a little bit about like how how you're doing that now, like how you're
absolutely
developing your leadership and stuff like that?
So we've kind of taken it That kind of all happened organically. There was no process.
Yeah.
There was no official, hey, do this, do this, do this.
Step one, create culture.
Exactly, right? So it happened organically, but there was only a handful of people that it really happened with at that time. And I think that as our businesses have grown, we're having to scale these systems, and leadership development is one of those systems you have to scale. And so it is a lot more developed now, the way that I engage with my people. However, even though we have this developed process, I still really, really want that organic feeling to our conversations and to what we do. And so I kind of tether in the book reading. And so we look at this process, and there's kind of milestones that they have to achieve. They have to display certain behavior. They have to really prove that they have knowledge around certain things, and then they're going to show some practice around these things. And so really we want it to be kind of part of them growing in knowledge, part of them really doing some hands-on and some mentoring of others and being mentored. And then there's this piece of like discussing, what are they thinking? What's going on in their brain as they read these books and they're introduced to these new ideas and concepts on treating people differently, being better with their time expenditures, all these kind of things. And that's the piece that I've really held on to, is when they go through a book, I really still like to hold on to this piece of talking with them about it. Like, what are you thinking?
Yeah.
What'd you pull from this?
Yeah.
So that's kind of really how we do it today in my business. We have that process, but we still really strive for that organic feeling.
Yeah, it's like I always say it's kind of ambiguous, culture is, and that's why I think probably a lot of businesses don't get it right, or they don't really put any kind of intentional effort behind it, because it isn't like step one, do this, step two, do this, step three. There are some elements for sure that need to be there, and I think you hit on them, like personal development, or reading books, setting goals, personal goals, and practicing it, showing initiative on it, like an initiative oftentimes is like you got to tell them about it. Like you shouldn't have to tell real leaders about initiative. They just want to be awesome. And so so those things are, and I guess it comes back to your hiring process a little bit too. What does that look like? And I think a lot of people they're like, oh well, I'm hiring for a minimum wage job, so I don't really have to be that you don't really need to be that tough on this process, or doesn't need to be that rigid. But that's where your leader is going to come from, and if you hire the leaders directly into leadership positions, you can do that, but it's obviously better if you can bring them from the ground up, because you train 100%. Them your way, you teach them your way, and they have the respect and usually admiration of their peers, because they kind of went through the trenches, if you will.
Absolutely.
All right, so like Simon Sinek Start With Why is kind of one of that's one of the big things that kind of actually first started getting me to read. That was actually my first book, which was my own initiative.
That's a good one.
But I really wasn't pushed kind of further than that. I saw his video, and something about it really struck a chord with me, because I showed it to everybody, and and at that time I was just like, I don't even know, I was just working minimum wage kind of, I think, landscaping job maybe at the time, or maybe it was when I worked at a call center for a little bit, but one of those jobs that was just like, there's no future here kind of. Right. And I watched that video, it really inspired me, and then eventually I got the book, and I had a job in Murfreesboro that, again, it felt like it might be more than, it felt like that job was going to turn into something, then really wasn't. But I would listen to the audiobook as I went an hour or two in front of Murfreesboro. Yep. And it just had a huge impact on me. And I went to my first convention not too long after that, which was cool that my bosses sent me to that. And actually, then I went to another convention, and it just kind of started to pile up. So I guess by the time I was introduced to like regular reading by the guys who I mentioned earlier, my previous bosses, it wasn't like brand new, but it was definitely not something I was doing regularly. And I have this book where I keep like all of my notes from all the different leadership kind of books or whatever I've read. And it's like I always get the most out of that when I can do that. But anyways, all that kind of like just, I guess, getting towards kind of practical implementation of culture. What do you have any advice for other like entrepreneurs who maybe aren't really being really intentional about this, or a little bit unsure where to start? Like, how do you bring that into a business that maybe doesn't have the advantages of like Chick-Fil-A? Because I know Chick-Fil-A does have a focus on that.
Absolutely, yeah. And it really sounds like we're just talking about leadership development, but I think what you have to realize is the leaders in your business are the drivers of culture in your business. I mean, every team member may hold a piece to that, and that's
Right.
why you got to select the right people. But the leadership are the ones that are kind of holding it accountable and driving it in place. And so I think that's where, if you're looking and you go, oh, my business, we're not just hiring leaders, or we're not developing a bunch of leaders, we're just kind of getting some tasks done and things. I think what you have to realize is that it doesn't mean that someone has to be leading a giant team of people to be leading and influencing, because as John Maxwell says, leadership is influence.
Yeah.
So even the smallest amount of influence means someone's leading at a certain level.
Yeah.
And so I think that when you're looking for people, if you're looking at culture, what you really want is, hey, do these people align with my values? So you got to be clear on that, for one
Right.
thing. So if you haven't, figured out what your values are, and you haven't figured out what your mission, what you're trying to accomplish is, I think you're going to have a really hard time really deciphering who you want in your business, because then I'm filling in the minimum wage job because I don't really know what I want. And once you define that and get that in place, and that can seem kind of frustrating or like just extra work, but really, if you can do it on the front end, it's a lot more clear about who belongs and who doesn't. And so that allows you to begin to identify those people. And then you're going to identify, even in some of those people that you hire that can align with your values, you're going to realize, hey, some of these people are capable of influencing. And some of them are just going to be capable of holding it in place, and they're going to have the integrity, or they're going to have the drive to do more. Maybe maybe one of your values is stewardship. Maybe they're really good at stewardship. But then you're going to have someone that's going to not only be good at stewardship, but talking about stewardship and showing stewardship and getting other people to really believe, like, hey, this is why we need to be better at stewardship. And that's where the influence piece kind of comes into place, and the leadership piece.
Interesting.
So
yes, I mean, so it's kind of like, so you hit on like hiring process
Yeah.
there at the first place, and then just like, I think one of the difficult things is just like identifying those leaders. There isn't like a checklist for it. It really is. I think it is something that you have to kind of innately know, and you
That's
innately
right.
know, I think, if you know what your core values are, because if you know what those are, then you know when you see it.
Right.
Know? So
And I think some people think core values means we go to a whiteboard and we pick 3 or 4 things that sound really good and make us feel warm and fuzzy. That's not really it. I think it has to start with your mission or your call on your life, whatever you want to call it. But basically your purpose. And so when I think about mine, I really kind of establish, I feel like, hey, no matter what I choose to do, I feel specifically called to develop leaders both personally and professionally in my community and in my workplace. No matter where I am, what I do, that's what I want to do. Chick-Fil-A is a great platform for me to be able to do that. And because of that, that begins to allow me to do a great job of understanding what the values are that's going to support that in my business. And our mission statement within the business of Chick-Fil-A, so that was my personal. When we look at Chick-Fil-A, ours is to build community. And we really go, hey,
it's just those 2 words.
Just build
right?
community, right?
Yeah.
Because I think maybe I got to share this last time, and I don't want to miss this because this was really important. I had
That's why I said it.
Yeah, good, yeah, because we had this long phrase, this statement of buzzwords. Really, it was, I think I can remember it now, is to be Columbia's best quick service restaurant by offering sincere relationships, exceptional food, and world-class service. It doesn't sound bad. Like it's like, okay, cool. I think that'd be great to accomplish that. But it really just left kind of an emptiness at the end of it. Nobody could remember it. And when I think about it, I go, man, as a restaurant, why wouldn't I be why would I not be wanting to achieve these things anyway? And then you got to take a step back and go, how am I going to achieve these things? And for me, I really believe, hey, if we get in this mindset of just building community, I said, hey, we got to take this apart. I was really frustrated with where my business was. I didn't really understand why we weren't achieving that because I felt like we were not world class at all.
Yeah.
Some people were having really good experiences, but I just did not feel world class by a long shot. And I had another leader come in and basically say, "Hey, Caleb," he knew me really well. It was one of my old bosses, and he said, "Caleb, this sounds fine, like it's full of buzzwords, but this is not who you are. Like that's not who I've known you to be. Like I think you've put that together because it sounds great, and it's garbage."
It sounds like a business thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it kind of hurt my feelings for about a minute or two, and then I thought, you know what, he's right. Like, where do I really connect to this at all?
Some of the biggest points of growth hurts your feelings for a little bit.
Oh my goodness, yeah, right. And that's where we kind of he challenged me. He said, "Caleb," he said, "what do you love to do? What do you think you've done everywhere you've been?
Yeah.
What'd you do in my business when you worked for me?" And really, where I landed was build community. I've always wanted to build community, and what that means to me is common unity. Not just community like, hey, I want to build Columbia. Like
Right.
It's I want to find the common unity. What's our common purpose? Because for me, I have a staff of over 80.
Oh, wow.
I promise you, we do not all possess everything on the same page. We're not all believing the same thing. We don't live the same way. We are different ages. We have different backgrounds, right? We're diverse. But our common point that we have is to serve the guest and to serve each other. And I think about my community in Columbia and I go, hey, there's a lot of other things going on. Where's our common point? And that's where we can connect with them and add value to them and add value to the community.
And I think a lot of people, what you hit on there is like, a lot of people do forget that like serving, like the employees serving each other, like,
oh my gosh, yeah,
that's huge, and it gets overlooked so much because it's just like it's everyone just like do whatever you got to do for the clients first, you know, all that. But when you don't focus inwardly, you know, like then why would people really want to stay? You know,
you're not displaying anything that you're preaching.
Yeah, you've got to treat your employees the same way you do, and I think that's kind of a newer way of thinking that's really starting to reach small businesses now. Is like for so long it was like customers always right, clients first and stuff like that. But I remember a point at the business that I worked at that I was just like, man, we really all like each other, or we all want each other to improve. You know, we didn't all have the same interest or backgrounds or whatever. Different ages, different genders, but it was just like we all wanted the best for everybody there.
I love that.
And that was so different from anywhere else I worked. And so, I mean, I attribute much of my inspiration and success to my previous bosses, Brian and Frank. But yeah, and so it's just like it's the hardest thing to nail down, but it's a never-ending process, just like self-improvement. You know, if you ever stop, same thing. Like you have to just accept the fact that this is going to always takes some work. It always takes some intentionality, and hopefully that's worth it for you.
Right. So. It's a process, not a destination.
Yeah, exactly. It is it's the journey. You know?
I'll tell you another little important thing that I've learned about culture, and I feel like there's two things that are enemies of culture in your business. And number one of that is growth. When your business experiences growth, the first thing that tends to go is the culture, because it's the thing that's the extra. It requires the extra energy, the extra focus. And usually when you grow, depending on how well you've planned for that growth, it can just deter away from that. It's all hands on deck. It's like we just got to focus on getting this done, whatever. Mm-hmm. And you kind of forget the reason why you're growing a lot of times is because you maybe what you put in on the culture side in the beginning, or maybe it is just happenstance of someone finally figured out that what you sold was what they needed, and here you go. and that can happen too. But growth is an enemy, but the second enemy is entitlement. And I think we throw around the word entitlement, and we think that just because someone wants perks or benefits in a workplace, that's entitlement, and that's not necessarily true. When I really think about it, I go, what really creates entitlement is when we provide a benefit with no substance that shows them why we get that benefit. When it's, just if you'll just come work here, I'll give you all these things. It feels like this bait and switch because you're really not promising anything substantial to them other than just, oh, you can just have this, you can have this, you can have this. It's like giving a kid candy to be your friend versus just befriending them.
So what's that like? I guess, how do you address that?
Yeah, so in my business, we offer free meals for anyone that comes to work. And it's different for each Chick-fil-A. Some people don't offer free meals. Some offer half off. Some, tie it to certain metrics. All kinds of different things. For me, because of the way I grew up, it was such a big deal because I didn't eat out very often at a restaurant. And so every day that I worked at Chick-fil-A, even if I only worked a 4-hour shift, I got the chicken sandwich and waffle fries, and it made me just love the food, which I feel like helps the brand, but also just
That's true.
It was also just meaningful to me.
Yeah.
And so because of that, that's obviously influenced the way that but that's a benefit, or we have some flexibility of the working schedule. And so the way that I kind of communicate that is making sure that people understand in my business that, hey, that's a privilege. It's not a requirement. There's no federal law that says I have to feed you.
Yeah.
There's no federal law that says I have to work with your school schedule. We're in a right to work state, so they don't have to work for me either.
Yeah.
But it's this mutual understanding of, hey, when you are contributing to our culture, when you're contributing to our values, when you're doing your job well and you're fitting in, here is the benefit and here is the privilege that you get to be part of this team. And this is where I'm investing back in you, and I'm saying thank you, and I'm showing my appreciation to you. It's not just because you work here.
Right.
Hey, I get my free meal. And we kind of communicate that in the orientation piece.
Okay, yeah, that's the next question.
Yeah. So in the orientation, we're like, hey, here's some benefits of working here.
Mm-hmm.
This is why you get those benefits. And just so you know, those can be taken away. And here's how they can be taken away. So we ask everyone to be in proper uniform when they come in. Clean shaven, wearing their belt, their pants, looking neat and presentable. Because that's really important to how we interact with our customers.
Yeah.
If they don't take that serious, guess what? They lose their meal privilege for that day. They're not entitled to it because they didn't bring their best.
Yeah.
And if they go back and they piece themselves back together, then sure, they can come back and earn it back.
Yeah.
But there's those kind of things. I don't tie it to, did we think you did a good job or not today?
Yeah. It's got to be a little bit more objective.
That's right.
Or else that's when difficulty.
Because then it's well, this manager thought they did a good job, and this one didn't. This one's lenient. This one's
exactly.
And that'll create a lot of problems. And so when I kind of started understanding that about culture, that really helped me define it. And I heard someone say this, and I don't remember if it was in a book or a seminar I went to, and I loved it. It just stuck with me. They said, no one gets a define culture except for you, as the business owner.
Wait, say it again. No one what?
No one gets to define culture except for you. It's not a democracy.
Gotcha. Yeah.
It's not. I don't like this, so I think we should do this.
Yeah.
I don't like that we need, for my 3 core values, it's communication, relationships, and fun, and it's all going toward build community. I don't like to build community, so I don't think we should have to do that here. Sorry, you don't get to define it. You can participate in culture.
Yeah.
We can coach you and develop you in this culture, but you don't get to define the culture. And I think some people really miss out on that because they go, oh, if I hold up this standard, I'm going to miss out on this employee, and I really need them.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to let that go. This is where that growth piece kind of comes into. I'm going to let this standard go because I need somebody on that cash register. And it's a real temptation, Danny.
Yeah.
It's real.
It's the easy button. But, again, almost always the easy solution is the one that's going to cost you.
And I've been guilty of it, and it cost me.
Yeah. No, every small business does, man. Dude, thank you so much again for coming back. This has been awesome. We're definitely going to have you back on again. And
sure.
A third time for our second episode. Anything coming up event-wise at Chick-Fil-A or anything that you want to bring some attention to?
We don't have anything super special going on right now. We got some really awesome news coming around. If you get in and out during lunch and you have trouble and you don't like making that left-hand turn on James Campbell, they are in the process of installing some traffic lights there, right there on Pillow Drive and James Campbell. So if you're kind of worried about that during your lunch hour, good news is coming for you. Traffic will be a little bit better and smoother here in just hopefully a few weeks.
Right on. And where can people find your location? Yeah,
we're at 605 South James Campbell Boulevard, and that's Columbia, Tennessee. We're kind of right across from a Sonic and Walmart.
Awesome. Dude, thank you again so much for being on. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in and listening. This has been, I love these episodes. I love talking about this stuff with you, man. It's good. We're definitely going to do this again. I got some news for you, too, some exciting news.
Awesome.
I'll share later, sharing with the audience later, too. But you can email me if you would like to be interviewed on my podcast. You have something of value to share with a small business audience. Danny at DannyColeman.me. I also, you can follow me on Instagram at I am Danny Coleman. I would appreciate a 5-star review on iTunes. It really does help me out. Or you're at whatever you're listening to podcasts at. If it's not 5 stars, just give me some really good objective feedback and I'll appreciate it. Hope you're all doing well. See you later. Thanks.
Want more? Go to DannyColeman.me to download Danny's free small business hiring guide, which includes tips, templates, and tools, plus a step-by-step process you can use to find and keep high-quality employees for your small team or business.